Good morning. I'm Linda Lambert, Deputy Director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA, and I am honored to welcome all of you today to BARDA Industry Day 2022, including all of you who are joining us virtually, as well as the BARDA staff, many of whom are here with us in live and in person in our audience in Washington. We are so very excited to welcome you, and we have a lot to share with you during these next 2 days. BARDA's mission is to develop and procure medical countermeasures that address the public health and medical consequences of chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear incidents, pandemic influenza, and emerging infectious diseases. One key part of how we do this is by fostering innovation. This means innovation in the science and development of medical countermeasures, as well as innovation in the way that we work with our collaborators in the private sector and across the federal government. And that is what BARDA Industry Day is all about. Our agenda includes presentations by our division directors and many of our program leaders, as well as guests from across our community of partners. But BARDA Industry Day is not just about formal presentations. It is about getting to know each other and how we can work with all of you. I hope that you had an opportunity to visit our virtual expo earlier today so that you can meet our BARDA staff and so that we can learn more about what you are doing. The expo will be open again later today from 4 to 6 p.m., tomorrow again from 9 to 10 a.m., and again tomorrow afternoon from 4 to 6 p.m. Please take a look at the booths and again give us a chance to get to know you. The expo is accessible via the Attendee Hub on your screen during the open hours. The Attendee Hub also gives you the opportunity to meet other attendees throughout both of our days. You can extend an invitation to another attendee for a short virtual meeting, or you can choose the instant networking feature, which, as I understand it, is a lot like professional speed dating. So if you choose to try instant networking, and we hope that you very much do, you'll be randomly connected to another willing participant for a 5-minute video chat. So it is now time to start our first plenary session, and we could think of no one better to start us off than our first speaker. May I have that? Let me see. Do that? Okay. It is my pleasure to introduce to all of you Dawn O'Connell, the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. Ms. O'Connell leads the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, what we refer to as ASPR. And she also serves as the Principal Advisor on Public Health Emergencies to the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. And she heads the ASPR organization that leads our nation in preventing, responding to, and recovering from the adverse health effects of man-made and naturally occurring disasters. Please join me with a very warm welcome to Ms. Dawn O'Connell.
It's so nice to see those of you that are here in person. I can't tell you, I've been waiting for this day when we would finally be together. I know we're not all together, but for those of you that are here, it's so great to see you. And thank you, Linda, for that kind introduction. I am delighted to welcome you to this year's BARDA Industry Day. And as Linda said, I'm Dawn O'Connell, the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. And for the past 17 months, I have led the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response, or ASPR, as Linda mentioned, where our mission is to help the nation prepare for, respond to, and recover from public health emergencies and other disasters. BARDA is a critical part of ASPR. For those of you new to BARDA, it is one of the premier research and scientific institutions in the U.S. government. I like saying that, so I'll say it again. It is one of the premier research, and scientific institutions in the U.S. government. And BARDA is often an unsung hero, which is why I said it twice. It is always working tirelessly in the background. But I want to be clear that BARDA is responsible for many of the critical tools we rely on in times of infectious disease outbreaks and responses to other disasters. And under the strong leadership of Gary and Linda and their senior leadership team, BARDA continues to grow and innovate, and the country is better and safer and more prepared as a result. I am so pleased that BARDA has brought each of you here today to engage in what I hope are fruitful and challenging conversations about the future of medical countermeasures and the ways we might partner together. For those of you who have been with us from the beginning, you know that BARDA Industry Day has evolved, growing from local panel discussions in 2010 to bi-coastal educational meetings to now what is a large Washington, D.C. based conference. But still, the purpose remains the same. BARDA is focused on bringing together potential collaborators from across the public and private sectors who are interested in advancing the innovation and development of medical countermeasures. Bringing innovators together is an essential part of what we do in ASPR. We are focused on strengthening our nation's public health and medical infrastructure and building on the capabilities necessary to quickly mobilize a coordinated national response to disasters and emergencies. Coordinating these efforts with the private sector to accomplish this work has never been more important than it is today. ASPR is currently leading efforts to fight COVID-19, combat the monkeypox outbreak, ease the baby formula shortage, and we recently deployed personnel to Florida to help communities recover from Hurricane Ian. And in recognition of the important work the ASPR team, including BARDA, have been leading on behalf of the American people throughout the pandemic and every day, this summer, Secretary Becerra elevated ASPR from a staff division to an operating division within HHS. This puts us on the same footing as agencies like CDC, FDA, NIH, and others. This change allows us to build out the administrative functions, such as HR and contracting, that we need to fully support the responses we have been running. And we have a new name, and you see it up there, the Administration for Strategic Preparedness and Response. But to keep things simple, we kept the same acronym. We're still ASPR. And our work on COVID-19 is probably where we have crossed paths with many of you in the last few years. We have distributed PPE and other supplies from the SNS. We have shipped tests through covidtest.gov, and we have invested in domestic manufacturing of critical supplies to create a more resilient public health supply chain. And perhaps, most importantly, through its partnerships with you and many others, BARDA has led the research, development, and manufacturing efforts of COVID-19 vaccines and treatments. And we have ensured that they are available for free in communities across the country. We have also led a lot of innovative efforts and encouraged new ways of thinking about pandemic tools. One example is the BARDA Mask Innovation Challenge, which you'll hear more about from Gary in a few minutes, and he will share the details, but let me just say I've been impressed by the over 1,400 submissions we received. Consumer-driven innovation like this is what we need to continue strengthening our public health infrastructure. In addition to COVID, ASPR has been actively responding to the current monkeypox outbreak. From the first days of this response, we have been working closely with our CDC colleagues, coordinating the department's response and ensuring the availability of countermeasures across the country. And let me be clear, if it were not for the early support and investments by BARDA, the country, and the world for that matter, would not have had access to the Jynneos vaccine or the TPOXX antiviral to treat monkeypox. BARDA did this in collaboration with many of you, our industry partners, but I'm not sure that this message came out clearly enough in our response efforts, so I repeat this one as often as I can. Thanks to BARDA, we had a licensed vaccine to protect against monkeypox and a therapeutic available to those that got sick. We are in a similar situation with the current Ebola Sudan outbreak in Uganda. While there are currently no licensed vaccines or therapies for Ebola Sudan, BARDA has invested in the development of a therapeutic and 2 vaccine candidates that appear promising. BARDA is working closely with the government of Uganda and the WHO to set up clinical trials of the products to better understand their effectiveness in this outbreak situation. BARDA has also made small amounts of the therapeutic available to the Ugandan government under a compassionate use protocol to treat healthcare workers and young children. Each of these responses has been reliant on a portfolio of countermeasures that BARDA has invested in. In order to ensure that BARDA is investing in the right countermeasures against the right threats, I have relaunched the FEMC, the interagency body that reviews the current threat landscape and recommends actions on available or future countermeasures. I officially reconvened the FEMC in February, and it has met 4 times since then. I have asked them to review our smallpox strategy in light of the monkeypox response, our RAD-NUC, and ChemBio strategies in light of the war in Ukraine, and I have charged them with reviewing all 70 of our current countermeasure requirements to be sure we are investing in the right things in the right amounts. Many of these requirements haven't been updated in many years, even though our threat landscape continues to evolve. I'm pleased that this work has started and look forward to reviewing the FEMC's recommendations over the coming months. And we will continue to look for ways to engage with you, our partners, in this process moving forward. And with that, let me thank you all for coming and spending these few days with us. We understand that building a stronger, more agile system of preparedness means working closely with you, our private sector partners. I want to extend my deepest thanks to all companies, organizations, and individuals who have brought their technologies to BARDA for consideration. Simply put, we couldn't do it without you. Thank you for all that you are doing with us and on behalf of our country. I hope you have an enjoyable and productive day ahead. Thanks so much.
Thank you so very much, Assistant Secretary O'Connell. Next, I am pleased to welcome to the stage Dr. Gary Disbrow, BARDA's director, for his update to all of us.
First, I want to thank the ASPR for those kind words. It really is an honor being part of the ASPR organization. So welcome. It is BARDA Industry Day 2022. I want to start by thanking the small but mighty BARDA Industry Day team that makes this event possible. They work on a shoestring budget, but they are an incredible team and really appreciate all of their efforts. So BARDA Industry Day provides an opportunity for the entire BARDA organization to interact with our external stakeholders. We have the ability to highlight some of our accomplishments, our recent accomplishments, lay out our strategic priorities for the coming fiscal year, as well as for future years, and also highlight some of the challenges that we all face. But more importantly, in addition to highlighting those challenges, is highlighting solutions that the BARDA organization is bringing forward to address some of those solutions. I want to thank our external stakeholders, our industry partners, as well as our U.S. government partners for their continued collaboration to make BARDA an impactful organization. And most importantly, I want to thank the BARDA team. It is an incredible opportunity and just an honor for me to represent you and work beside you. The BARDA team is truly dedicated to public health and bringing forward solutions to public health emergencies, and their dedication is, I feel, unparalleled in the U.S. government. And the impactful program that BARDA has become has also been recognized by our international partners. So within the last year, the European Commission stood up HERA to model, based off of the BARDA model, to set up an organization within the European Union to develop medical countermeasures and improve pandemic preparedness for the European Union. And likewise, the government of Japan stood up SCARTA, again, built off the BARDA model to improve Japan's pandemic preparedness. So fiscal year '22 has been an incredibly productive year for the BARDA organization. It's also been an incredibly busy year for the BARDA organization. In addition to everything that we do with our partners to address chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, pandemic influenza, emerging infectious diseases, and support innovative technologies, we've been involved in 3 responses. As the ASPR mentioned, we continue our involvement in the COVID response. We have worked in collaboration with our colleagues from HCOR, as well as the SNS and the CDC, and our partners at JPO, the Department of Defense, to procure the bivalent vaccine and make that available for the fall vaccine campaign, as well as procure and roll out vaccines for all individuals above the age of 6. So we will continue to do this as we move forward. We're also continuing to push out therapeutics with over 18.5 million therapeutics that have been pushed out across the nation, as well as diagnostics. And many people don't remember that some of the earliest diagnostics that were made available during the COVID response were those supported by BARDA that received EUAs early on. We're also involved, as the ASPR mentioned, in the monkeypox response. And the monkeypox response will serve as a model as we move forward for pandemic preparedness. So we were able to leverage, as the ASPR mentioned, our previous investments and had a licensed smallpox vaccine as well as a smallpox antiviral. The smallpox vaccine actually has a monkeypox indication, and we were able to roll that out quickly. The smallpox antiviral can be used under a compassionate use protocol to treat those individuals who require it. We were also able to scale up fill finish of the vaccine and make more of that available, as well as support domestic manufacturing of the vaccine. So BARDA played a critical role in having these products immediately available to respond to monkeypox. As I mentioned, we'll discuss some of the challenges. One of the challenges is that this has decremented our preparedness for smallpox. And so absent congressional funding to provide a bolus of funds that we can return our smallpox preparedness to where it was prior to the monkeypox response, it will take us several years to build back that preparedness. And as the ASPR mentioned as well, we're also involved in the Sudan outbreak in Uganda. The world looked to BARDA as one of the few organizations globally that was supporting the development of Sudan medical countermeasures, vaccines, therapeutics, as well as diagnostics. We're working very closely with our international partners as well as our intergovernmental partners to scale up manufacturing and, as ASPR mentioned, make those products available for potential clinical trials in Uganda. And as the ASPR mentioned, BARDA has already sent over some of the therapeutics as well as numerous diagnostic tests for cadaver screening. So again, very proud of all of these efforts in addition to what we do every day. But BARDA has become a response organization. So one of the metrics that we use to measure success is FDA approvals, licensures, or clearances. And over our 15-year history, in collaboration with our industry partners, we have supported 65 of these. So these cut across our CBRN, pandemic influenza, and emerging infectious disease threat space. They include vaccines, diagnostics, therapeutics, and devices. And it is critical to keep track of these and use this as a metric because these are products that are now available if there is a public health crisis, that these can be deployed quickly. But it is only one measure of our success. Another measure of our success is investments in a robust portfolio under advanced research and development, as well as a robust portfolio in innovative earlier technologies. And those technologies, again, will be the basis of the next 65 products that are supported by BARDA for FDA approvals, clearances, or licensures. And so the 3 that were added in fiscal year '22 cut across multiple threat spaces. The Spikevax in our partnership with Moderna. So in addition to the JPO contract for procurement, BARDA had its own contract with Moderna to support advanced research and development and licensure of the Spikevax vaccine. Our continued partnership with SIGA Technologies has led to an intravenous formulation of TPOXX, and this is actually being deployed right now in the monkeypox response. And then finally, our partnership with DiaSorin led to one of the first FDA clearances for a COVID diagnostic. And then our first approval in fiscal year '23 is the Silverlawn product in our partnership with Argentum. And so this product was originally developed by BARDA in collaboration with Argentum for first and second degree burns. That was its first FDA approval. The second FDA approval came when the chemical branch supported the development of this product to address sulfur mustard burns. And then most recently, the burn branch has worked with them to support the radiation cutaneous injury indication. So a single product that has 3 indications to address multiple threats that BARDA has to address. And this product also has a commercial indication for radiation dermatitis as well as burn injury treatment for individuals, helping to sustain that program. Some additional FY22 highlights. We have our contracting professionals executed over 890 contracting actions. This represents more than 3/4 of the total contracting actions by the ASPR organization. We have 10 new research areas of interest in our EZBA and broad agency announcement, over 70 new partnerships in fiscal year 2022, and we've also invested through our PCI program in industrial-based capacity expansion for sterile injectables as part of the COVID response, an investment of over $1.7 billion, and expansion of 3 domestic diagnostic manufacturing efforts, as well as 4 medical countermeasures that have been added to the Strategic National Stockpile. So you'll hear about all of these in greater detail as we go throughout the day, but just an incredible amount of productive interactions with our stakeholders to make all of this happen. Our stakeholders always want to know the BARDA investments, so this is by the numbers, and BARDA receives about $2 billion through our annual appropriations for advanced research and development, Project BioShield, and pandemic influenza. You can see that there was a slight dip in fiscal year 21 as far as the amount of money we were able to award. We still received our $2 billion in appropriations, but because of competing priorities with the COVID response, we were not quite able to meet our target of getting greater than 95% of our provided funds invested. However, as we built the BARDA organization and brought on new people, both federal staff as well as contract support, we were able to bounce back, and that money carried forward into fiscal year 2022, and we actually made $2.23 billion in investments in 2022 for pandemic influenza, Project BioShield, and advanced research and development. In addition, in fiscal year 2022, we invested $26.3 billion in the COVID response for vaccines and therapeutics. This is more than 10 times the amount of funding that we were provided on an annual basis to prepare our nation for the future pandemics. We did this in collaboration with our partners at JPO and ACC, and we're very grateful for that collaboration over the entire COVID response. I do want to mention that many of these contracts that were awarded by JPO and ACC are transitioning back to BARDA, so this is going to be a heavy lift for the BARDA organization, but our DCA team, our contracting staff, is well poised to accept these contracts and is working very hard to make sure that the transition is smooth. One of the highlights for fiscal year 2022 was the release of the BARDA Strategic Plan. One of my top priorities after becoming the permanent director of BARDA was to update the BARDA Strategic Plan, which had not been released since fiscal year 2011. So I felt that it was critically important that BARDA lay out its vision, its strategic vision, as well as the vision for our organization to our external stakeholders. There are 4 primary goals, and you can see those highlighted on the slide. Preparedness, which is what we do and have been doing for the past 15 years, as well as a goal for response. As I mentioned, BARDA is increasingly called upon to respond to public health emergencies. BARDA was not established as a response organization, but I mentioned again that BARDA is now a response organization. So we have to determine how to minimize the impact on the rest of the BARDA organization when we are in response mode. Part of that comes from increased staff so that we have the ability to be flexible and do both of our day jobs as well as a response mode. But part of that is also looking across the BARDA organization at a response structure. Obviously, our partnerships, we want to increase and streamline the way that we interact with our partners, and I'll talk about that in a minute. and then workforce. Again, I feel that BARDA, the BARDA team is one of the most dedicated teams in the federal government, and we want to continue to build that team as we move forward. So looking to the future for fiscal year 23, and you'll hear about many of these topics today, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but one of the things that you'll see that is common across all of the program divisions is innovation as well as threat agnostic development for vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics. And so this is a key moving forward. This aligns with our BARDA strategic plan and will better position BARDA, the BARDA organization for the future. So as far as innovation, BARDA has been very involved in establishing an innovative ecosystem since the establishment of DRIVE in 2018, the Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures. And it was critical when we stood up DRIVE, we also stood up an accelerator network. And we currently have 13 accelerators located across the United States because we wanted to interact with those innovators that are located outside of DC and those innovators that may not consider partnering with the federal government. They need money quickly. They're not used to working with the federal government. There's a lot of bureaucracy that's involved. And so the accelerators were able to, actually reach out to the innovative community, those entrepreneurs, and introduce them to the BARDA organization. And we also established a way for these small innovative companies to work with the federal government through our Easy BAA, again, bringing a solution to a potential issue or a challenge for these companies. It is a very streamlined process that allows us to award funds quickly, and even though it's capped at $750,000, it initiates that partnership with the companies. We also have the J-Labs Blue Knight program, which is our partnership with Johnson & Johnson J-Labs. We have established a lab space here in Washington, D.C. at National Children's Hospital, and we're currently supporting 26 companies, 26 innovative companies, both within the United States and elsewhere. And then BARDA Ventures was our partnership with GHIC, which you'll hear from the CEO of GHIC in just a couple of minutes. That was launched in 2021. We're celebrating a one-year anniversary in 2022, and they've already made 7 investments. But the goal of this entire program, this innovation program, is to spur innovation to bring those next innovative technologies forward as medical countermeasure development. So I mentioned streamlining our partnership opportunities. We're establishing a National Biopharmaceutical Manufacturing Consortium, or BIOMAC. The initial efforts will be built off of the industrial-based capacity expansion efforts that we've been focusing on through the COVID response, as well as looking at innovative manufacturing technologies. We're also modernizing the broad agency announcement and making the phase 1 stage of the broad agency announcement streamlined and easier so that we can provide feedback to our companies in a more rapid time frame. The broad agency announcement has served us well for the past 12 years, but it is important that we update this as we move forward. We're also expanding our Easy BAA to include a follow-on phase for those companies that are successful under the first Easy BAA award, and this also acts as an opportunity to provide them funding if they're not quite ready for a true advanced research and development contract. We're launching, and hopefully we'll have this in place by the end of fiscal year 23, a rapid response consortium, which is similar to the program that JPO has under MCDC. We can no longer rely on our DoD colleagues like we did for COVID response moving forward in the future. And as I mentioned, the broad agency announcement has been a great tool for preparedness, but we need a new tool to support response. We're also advancing multiple legislative proposals under the A19 process. I can't talk about those until they're out of the department, but we're happy to work with organizations like MC2, BIO, and the Alliance for Biosecurity, as well as our congressional members under technical assistance as PAPA reauthorization moves forward. So there are 2 policies that will drive a lot of what BARDA does moving forward. The American Pandemic Preparedness Plan and the National Biodefense Strategy Implementation Plan. There are very ambitious goals laid out in these 2 plans. One of those is to have sufficient vaccine in a future pandemic for all Americans within 100 days. It is critical that BARDA receives funding under the American Pandemic Preparedness Plan so that we can actually prepare for and develop medical countermeasures as we move forward to support future pandemic preparedness. And this slide actually highlights one of the things I mentioned earlier about monkeypox and as well as Ebola. So we know that we can do this. We know we can do it within 100 days, but it relies on having licensed products available. So for Ebola, Zaire, we are able to now have vaccines, therapeutics, and diagnostics available within 24 hours of an outbreak, and the same thing for monkeypox outbreak. And as well as we did under Operation Warp Speed, the CAG, and now HCOR, in developing therapeutics and vaccines and antivirals, if you look at the timeline, it took 5 months to repurpose a product that was already in phase 3 development for another indication. It took us 11 months to develop monoclonal antibodies and the vaccines, and it took 24 months to develop novel antivirals against COVID-19. So even though we had incredible success in the COVID response, which was a whole of government as well as working with our private sector partners, we have to meet a 100-day goal, and the only way to do that is to have those licensed products available. We know that we can do this. We've done it for Ebola Zaire, we've done it for monkeypox, and we've also shown that it can be done for COVID. Pfizer and Moderna were able to develop bivalent vaccines in 70 days, but again, that's based on a licensed vaccine technology. So even absent AP3 funding, which we don't think we're going to get in FY23, even though we will make another request for FY24, BARDA is looking across our portfolio to make investments in threat-agnostic products. And you can see some of the priority platforms and technologies and approaches that we're interested in investing in. And if you have one of those technologies and threat-agnostic programs or products, please register for a TechWatch. Our TechWatch program is a best-in-class and a best practice for the U.S. government. I want to thank the TechWatch team. It served as a single port of entry for any company that was interested in partnering with the U.S. government during the COVID response, and again, as a best practice moving forward. And even if your technology is not a perfect fit for BARDA, we bring other federal funders to those TechWatches, such as other agencies from HHS and DoD that may be able to provide funding. And we always provide honest feedback. If you want to register for a TechWatch meeting, you can do that under medicalcountermeasures.gov. So we have a packed agenda, and I know I've gone over time. In addition to the keynote addresses, I hope you'll all tune in tomorrow for the congressional perspectives by Congresswoman Eshoo and Congressman Hudson, as well as the cross-divisional strategic sessions that are throughout today and tomorrow, and then also the network opportunities. So we heard your criticism last year, and these network opportunities are now more interactive, where you actually have an opportunity to speak directly to BARDA staff as we move forward. And then finally, I want to, as Secretary O'Connell mentioned, Assistant Secretary O'Connell mentioned, acknowledge our Mask Innovation Challenge awardees. Again, there were over 1,500 submissions. This was a BARDA-initiated effort through our DRIVE program in collaboration with NIOSH, CDC, and NIST. It was incredible to see the response that we got from those innovators across the United States. 2 overall winners were selected, which will receive $150,000 each, as well as mentoring from BARDA, and those awardees are Origami and Ready Mask. And then there were 2 runners-up that will receive $50,000 each, as well as mentorship from the BARDA organization, and those are FlowMask and Levi. So congratulations to the Mask Innovation Challenge winners. And then our Blue Knight Quickfire Challenge winners, I want to acknowledge those as well. Again, this is our collaboration with Johnson & Johnson J-Labs. We had 3 focus areas. There were over 100 submissions, and 2 of the winners are host-directed therapeutics. That's Inthelia Therapeutics and ImmuneX. We also are going to be supporting NanoFreeze, which is a unique system that allows for freezing at higher temperatures, which can address shipping of vaccines and therapeutics and support the ultra-cold chain that are required for those. And then Vaxxis, which has the Mimic system, which is a self-applied vaccine patch to increase access to vaccines. So congratulations to our Quickfire Challenge awardees. And finally, thank you. Thank you to our external stakeholders. our industry partners, our federal employees, our other U.S. government partners that work with us, and you, the BARDA team, for all of the incredible work that you do each and every day to improve public health. And I hope you all have an enjoyable BARDA Industry Day. Thank you.
Hello, BARDA. My name is John Rigg. I'm the Director of Management Operations here at BARDA, and it is my great pleasure to do the first of 2 Division Director panels. The purpose of the Division Director panels is to give you just a snippet of information about what our divisions are and who some of the personalities are, so that you will have adequate information to attend our breakout sessions in the afternoons. And so this is the first of 2. It will be bookending an additional keynote session. And in this session, we get to hear from Dr. Chris Houchins, who's the director of the Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear Medical Countermeasure Division, from Ms. Tramell Faison, who's the director of our Regulatory and Quality Affairs, from Arlene Joyner with Pharmaceutical Countermeasure Infrastructure, and the inimitable Rodney Wallace from Detections, Diagnostics, and Devices Infrastructure. And with that, I'm just going to hand it over to these guys. But remember, there's plenty of opportunity to learn more about these programs and other programs in the afternoon breakout sessions. So thank you for joining us, directors.
Great, thank you, John. Good morning, everybody. Really a pleasure to be here. As John mentioned, I'm Chris Houchins, and I'm the director of BARDA's Division of Chemical, Biological, Radiological, Nuclear Medical Countermeasures, or CBRN MCMs. So CBRN's mission is to deliver safe and effective medical countermeasures to respond to a range of threats to national health security, such as recurring outbreaks of Ebola in West Africa, DRC, and Uganda, cases of monkeypox here in the US and around the world, the possible use of nuclear weapons in Eastern Europe and the Korean Peninsula, chemical weapons like nerve agents, chlorine, sulfur mustard, and sarin gas that have been used in the Middle East and other parts of the world, an opioid epidemic that has continued to claim the lives of over 100,000 Americans every year in the US, and also multi-drug resistant bacteria that cannot be treated with current antibiotics. This is just a snippet of some of the issues, some of the challenges that we face every day within CBRN. To accomplish this goal, we want to make sure that we make at least one medical countermeasure available for these threats and other threats. These threats are shown here. We have currently 19 different threats or threat spaces that we're required to deliver medical countermeasures against. And to accomplish this goal, we take a 3-pronged approach. By developing interventions that treat the injuries and not the threats resulting from exposure to radiological, nuclear, and chemical agents, making available novel MCMs that directly counter a range of biological threats like anthrax, Ebola, smallpox, and antimicrobial-resistant pathogens, and developing threat-agnostic capabilities that can be used to counter newly emerging threats, such as next-generation platform technologies, as well as broad-spectrum and host-directed therapies. As you will learn today and tomorrow, our priorities in FY23 and beyond focus on several investments in several areas to address these threats, including host-directed MCMs to treat the medical consequences of viral and bacterial infections, broad-spectrum antiviral drugs targeting multiple viruses from the same family or even multiple species within a family, investing in new capabilities to detect and treat blast injuries that result from nuclear detonation events, developing novel antifungal drugs to treat drug-resistant Candida and Aspergillus species, supporting the development of distributed on-demand vaccine and therapeutic manufacturing technologies, and repurposing commercially available FDA-approved drugs to address CBRN threats to really help us meet our sustainability metrics and objectives. CBRN's ultimate goal is to ensure that we are well prepared to rapidly respond to any CBRN threat anytime, anywhere, and with your help, we can achieve this goal. We look forward to engaging with you during BARDA Industry Day and beyond, and really thank you for your time and attention. So I'll turn it over now to Tramell Faison.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Tramell Faison, and I'm the Director of the Regulatory and Quality Affairs division here at BARDA. Our RQA mimics industry's organizational structure and is comprised of 3 branches: regulatory, I need to move a slide ahead. Yeah, regulatory operations, and quality. This is our RQA division director team. Our entire division is growing and has almost doubled in size during the pandemic. For this slide here, I'd like to point out our leadership. Our Senior Regulatory Advisor, Nina El Badri. She acts as our liaison to other government agencies and assists in tackling complex regulatory issues. And our branch chiefs, Dr. Penny Hilton, Quality Branch, Dr. Danielle Turley, Regulatory Branch, and Sylvia Tresnak-Smith, Regulatory Operations Branch. You can hear more about their roles and their work at our in-depth session this afternoon. You are also invited to attend RQA's breakout session, MCM Regulatory Engagements Prior and During a Public Health Emergency, tomorrow at 2 p.m. RQA is geared for BARDA's success. Today, BARDA has accomplished 65 approvals, licensures, and clearances, with the most recent addition of Argentum Silverlawn for cutaneous radiation injury. Regulatory and quality affairs is a core service and supports every program in BARDA. We ensure good regulatory practices are followed for non-clinical studies, clinical trials, and good manufacturing and quality systems for finished MCM products. As Gary said, we've got a lot of innovation going on. It's important to involve regulatory and FDA early and often. Our regulatory and quality specialists sit on product coordination teams for CBRN, influenza and emerging infectious disease, DDDI, and DRIVE. We advise on regulatory strategy, quality systems, regulatory submissions, and ensure compliance through our GXP audits. We collaborate with our federal partners, especially at the FDA. Prepare and submit regulatory submissions, such as pre-EUAs and EUAs, and perform product acceptance at the Strategic National Stockpile and vendor-managed inventory sites. Regulatory and quality oversight touches every aspect of MCM development, from before contracts are awarded all the way through product approval and post-approval marketing. Our mission is to ensure that all products developed and procured by BARDA are safe and effective. Thank you. And next we'll have Arlene Joyner.
Good morning. My name is Arlene Joyner. I am a branch chief within the Pharmaceutical Countermeasure Infrastructure, PCI department. So happy to have this opportunity to share a little bit about our department this morning. Within Pharmaceutical Countermeasure Infrastructure, we focus on the manufacturing capacity required to address population scale MCM response for future public health emergencies. We work with our partners in industry to ensure sufficient supply of vaccines, biologics, and small molecules and APIs that, again, needed to prepare and respond in event of a PHE. Our focus on production capacity includes the reagents, equipment, workforce development for all vaccine manufacturing. And this can include consumables, single-use reactor bags, filters, culture media, vaccine ingredients, and also the vials, needles, and syringes needed to get them to the people in need. So it's really an end-to-end focus in the supply chain. During BID 2022, you will hear from PCI's 3 branches: the Biopharmaceutical Manufacturing Partnership, or BioMAP, that's led by Tim Belsky; the Contract Development Manufacturing Organization, CDMO Network, led by myself; and then the Pandemic Vaccine Preparedness, Capabilities, and Readiness Division, led by Joe Figlio. These 3 branches together work collectively to increase the ability within the United States to rapidly produce vaccines safely and effectively, to manufacture those consumables
and the raw materials and other ingredients, and also to produce enabling supplies, such as, again, the needles, vials, and syringes needed to deliver these products to the American people. We also invest in domestic manufacturing and infrastructure improvements to ensure ready manufacturing of vaccines and therapeutics, scale-up and domestic fill-finish capacities during the COVID response, and again, for future public health emergencies. In recognition of the need to expand our nation's industrial base and strengthen pandemic preparedness and response, Congress has allocated significant funds for industrial base expansion, or IBX. And IBX will take key lessons that we've learned from COVID response and leverage them to further strengthen and enhance BARDA's and its partners' capacities to be rapid, nimble, and comprehensive in response. The future of PCI, there it goes. The future of PCI will focus on establishing the Biomanufacturing Consortium that Gary also mentioned. It's a consortium of industry partners across the drug and vaccine manufacturing supply chains, manufacturers of required raw materials and consumables, and fill-finish services to transform and build core capabilities for national health security. We're also establishing a database of CDMO organizations that can focus on continuing to build our network of highly qualified service providers. To hear more about PCI, we invite you to attend our program brief scheduled later today at 1:30. And then also we have 2 breakout sessions tomorrow, one for Biomap at 11, and then the CDM network at 2 p.m. And we also have some virtual booths available where we have our SMEs there to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Rodney Wallace, and I am Director of BARDA's Detection, Diagnostics, and Devices Infrastructure Division. DDDI develops diagnostics to address all of BARDA's threat portfolio. For CBRN threats, we develop biodosimetry tools, we develop biothreat diagnostics, and we develop diagnostics to inform appropriate use of antimicrobials. For influenza and Emerging Disease Division, we develop influenza diagnostics, emerging disease diagnostics for threats like Zika, Ebola, and of course, COVID-19. And then we develop respiratory protection devices as well. DDDI is organized into 3 branches. We have a molecular diagnostics branch headed by Dr. John Lee. We have a cellular and protein-based diagnostics branch headed by Dr. Chuck Deitch. And we have a medical devices branch also headed by Dr. Deitch. In the near term, DDDI is going to be focused on first closing up all of our existing COVID-19 programs, taking those products, many of them all the way through 510(k) clearance. We're realigning our efforts on on CBRN and flu. I've been saying COVID too much for a couple of years. On CBRN and flu programs. And then we have some ongoing diagnostic manufacturing capacity expansion programs that we're going to be closing up as they complete. In the midterm, we're going to continue to expand the availability of molecular and molecular performance level diagnostics for use in homes and point of care. And as Gary mentioned in his talk, we're going to work to help establish a rapid contracting mechanism so that the next time we have to respond to a pandemic, it won't be quite so hard. Longer term, we're going to be developing threat agnostic tests. These are tests to be used in the first days, weeks, and months of a pandemic, along with viral family tests, again, for the use in those early days of a pandemic. And we're going to be working to continue to expand domestic diagnostic manufacturing capacity and to help maintain that capacity depending on the availability of funds. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to invite everyone to DDDI's breakout session, which is this afternoon at 1:30. We also have an industry panel session tomorrow afternoon. And of course, we are open in the virtual trade show and ready to talk to you if you want to talk to us. So thank you all very much.
Thank you so very much, Trammell, John, Chris, Arlene, and Rodney for those Division Director updates. Our next speaker is the Director of Operations from the Center for Epidemic Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics, and it is Dr. Dylan George at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Under Dr. George's leadership, the center is building a world-class data and analytics capability to guide interventions in public health emergencies and future pandemics. Please join me in welcoming Dr. George.
It is an absolute pleasure and a thrill to be with you today. Of course, I look exactly like my picture, like we all do as we age. It is a bit of a homecoming for me as well. I used to work at BARDA in a former life, and back in 2014 or 15 or so, it's like I actually was helping with the Ebola response. I reported to Gary, who is the incident manager for the Ebola response in West Africa. And I want to publicly thank you, Gary, for being an exceptional leader, because many of the things I learned from Gary at that moment in that crisis are things that we're trying to apply in developing the Center for Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics. So let me make sure I've got, and I have a very soft spot in my heart for BARDA because I do think it is one of the better and more effective agencies within the federal government, especially in terms of how we interface with the private sector in a more effective way. So we're trying to learn from BARDA and how we're building things going forward as well. So with that, the Center for Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics is a new center within the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I am going to give you, if you don't remember anything else from this presentation, please remember this. What we're trying to accomplish at the Center for Forecasting and Outbreak Analytics is better data, better analytics for a better response. That's the punchline. Now, to prepare you for that punchline, I would like to take you back to Galveston, Texas. 1900. In the fall of 1900, at this time, Galveston was an up-and-coming city in the South. It was on the precipice of booming economically, and there was lots of activity going forward. Late that fall in 1900, Galveston Weather Bureau was actually receiving reports from ships out at sea that there was a storm brewing. Unfortunately, the Weather Bureau couldn't bring together the data, couldn't analyze the data, and couldn't inform the population that a storm was coming. Unfortunately, what happened that day is a Category 4 hurricane made landfall right on top of Galveston. Of the 40,000 people that lived in Galveston that day, somewhere between 6,000 and 12,000 people lost their lives. It was the worst hurricane disaster in the United States history. No building didn't have damage. Upwards of $1 billion worth of damage was done to Galveston that day, and it never became the booming economic center of the South that it was poised to be. Economic activity moved elsewhere, and it never recovered completely. Now, fast forward to today. We have the National Weather Service, we have the National Hurricane Center. We have capabilities that have been developed by largely because we as a nation have invested in those capabilities for early warning. Early warning saves lives. Early warning allows us to mass resources. It allows us to get people out of the way. It allows us to hunker down when need be. Early warning saves lives. Now, don't get me wrong, hurricanes still cause devastation and still cause tragedy, as we have definitely seen in this current hurricane season, but not on the order of magnitude that we saw in Galveston. And in no small part, it's because we as a nation have dedicated ourselves to helping build capabilities to keep people safe in those times of crisis. Now, where does that put us with, why am I talking about hurricanes when we're all here to talk about infectious diseases and that sort of thing? This is a cartoon that I like to use to describe what is happening with an outbreak. And for a group like this, it's not really overly necessary. But the progression of an outbreak from what we're seeing, pathogens circulating in animals, coming over to an index case in humans, stuttering chains of transmission. Sometimes they peter out, sometimes they actually sustain themselves into clusters, into epidemics, into pandemics, and then we go from there moving forward. Now, the blue box underneath that cartoon is what we refer to as the toolbox of analytics that can be used across this outbreak, across this pandemic. And there's different sorts of information that are useful early, middle, and late in an outbreak. And there's different analytics that can be used to help us understand what can be done. And so what we're trying to accomplish within the Center for Forecasting Outbreak Analytics is in making that toolbox bigger, making that toolbox better, and making that toolbox much more broadly available to jurisdictions across the United States to keep Americans safe going forward. Now, early in a pandemic, we really need to understand, is something weird happening? Is there something event? And in fact, as we talk about these 100-day sorts of goals, we need some way to start the clock. When do you start the clock for the 100 days? And this is one of the ways that we need to have better surveillance, we need to have better kind of capabilities to kind of do that sort of thing. Then we need to actually be able to characterize the risk associated with something. Who's infected, how's it spreading, to whom, how much clinical severity is it, what are the risks associated with it. Then we need to understand, it's like, what are the interventions that could be put into place? Do we need to think about vaccines much more effectively? What sorts of non-pharmaceutical interventions need to be put in place, and how do we bring them together in a much more effective way? Then we need to track how we're moving and how effective we're being in applying those interventions going forward. Different analytics and different data will help us accomplish that improved information to actually guide our decision-making during an outbreak. And so this is what we're trying to accomplish as we move forward. Now, one of the things that we are trying to do is we're trying to build the organization, we're trying to walk and chew gum at the same time. We're trying to build our organization, and we're actually trying to provide analytical insights at the same time. About this time last year, we all saw Omicron come on the scene. My team and I, we were all at Thanksgiving. That afternoon, we all had to jump on the phone call. What's happening in South Africa? What do these data mean? How do we understand them? That Monday, we came together first thing. We brought together a group of academics to actually help us think this through. It was very clear that there was something going on with immune evasion and increased transmissibility with that variant. What does that mean? How do we actually interpret that, and how do we actually move that forward? Well, we were able actually to put together some very quick and dirty sorts of scenarios telling us that January was going to be brutal. It was going to be rough. And it turned out to be the case. We were able to tell the director of the CDC, we were able to tell our colleagues in the White House that this was going to be the case going forward, and then we were able to actually put this out very quickly going forward. So we've been trying to actually implement some of these things as we're building our organization going forward. This is just one example of an early accomplishment of how we can actually move these things forward. Now, the next question is like, well, if we knew we were going to have lots of cases, but how clinically severe would it be? How much impact was there going to be on the healthcare system going forward? One of the things, so we had some early data from the UK Health Security Agency. We had some information from the Ministry of Health in Israel. These were the first data that we had from the United States to actually tell us how severe the pathogen was, the Omicron variant was in the United States. And my colleague, Mark Lipsitch, was the one that was actually pushed this forward more effectively than anyone else. But it was because of the Center for Forecasting Outbreak Analytics that we were able to actually find within Kaiser Permanente and working with colleagues at the University of Berkeley that we could actually track. We got lucky because they were using the S-gene dropout assay, so we could actually tell who had Delta, who had Omicron, and we could track those cohorts through time and then see how severe clinically they were going forward. And these were the first data from the United States to show that they were less severe, but it was still severe enough that we were going to have significant impacts on the healthcare system going forward. So we knew spread, we knew clinical severity going forward in a relatively short amount of time. These are some examples of what we were trying to accomplish with what we're doing here. Now, the other thing too is I just wanted to note, it's like there are situations where you're not going to have the best available data moving forward. Monkeypox is a good example of that. So we tried to come up with some qualitative approaches on how to actually understand what was going on and also how to think prospectively going forward. One of the things that has not been a common feature within public health is we've largely looked retrospectively at the data, and it's almost been archaeological experimentation of using the data of what's happened in the past to understand what the risks are going forward. We need to move forward in thinking about how do we actually prospectively understand what's going to happen going forward, because those are the big decisions. Understanding when do you need to move from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 trials for a vaccine, those are big dollar decisions. We need to have better analytics to help us understand how to transition those. These were some, if you type into CDC technical reports, monkeypox, these things will pop up. We were trying to come up to provide these sorts of reports to help people understand what was happening with it, provide modelers with more information as to what was the best available data, and then also give some prospective assessments with qualitative approaches going forward. So these are other examples of things that we were trying to innovate on and going forward. Now, we are very interested in partnering with our federal partners, with academics. Also, one of the reasons why I was very excited about coming here and talking to you today, though, too, is because we want to partner with the private sector. We are going to have our own set of industry days coming forward, probably in Q1 2023, and so please keep aware of that, and we would love to partner with those of you that are working on data and analytics or doing data collection sorts of efforts. But we've done a range of different efforts to try to move our capabilities going forward in terms of advancing the science of using analytics, developing new technologies. I spend more time doing workforce development right now than anything else, which is a big, big lift going forward. And I am so proud to be a part of the team that we're developing right now. They're an amazing group. And then also just like trying to support decision makers, trying to learn from the current efforts that are going on right now. We spend a lot of time doing that as well. There's like 4 main guiding principles that I wanted to highlight as well, that as we're trying to build our organization. The first one, first and foremost, is we are trying to be a mission-focused or have impact on response. We are going to be a response organization versus a disease-specific organization to try to improve responses going forward. We also want to be very open and transparent in how we're doing things. We want to embrace an open science and a reproducible science sort of culture. And we want to work very collaboratively, particularly with the private sector, because we need to use technology, particularly data technology, in a whole new way that has not been done at scale in the United States. And then we want to be very equity focused. We want to think about how do we build capabilities for all Americans, not just those that happen to live near Harvard. This is the last slide that I will leave you with, and this is one of the things that I really like. A good friend of mine, Jeff Shaman, up at the, Columbia University, put me onto this slide a handful of years ago. What you see on this is time in decades across the x-axis. Across the y-axis, you see some sort of measure of forecasting skill for numerical weather forecasting. The blue line and the red line are monotonically increasing through time. And what this figure is really telling you is back in the 50s and 60s, we were rubbish at forecasting weather. We were not good at it at all. But you fast forward to today, we're pretty good at it. Every one of us, I will bet, in this room has a mobile device with a weather app on it, and that they check it to figure out what they should have worn today. Is it going to be too cold? Is it going to be raining? We understand how to use that information in an intuitive way, and there's a significant amount of effort that has been put into that little icon that you have on your mobile device. The data, the models, the people, the computational power, the ability to deliver that going forward has all been supported largely by the federal government and other governments across the globe to improve those capabilities to the point where we're actually good at it now. And we can use it to save people and to give early warning, like what happens with hurricanes now. Now, if we're to be honest with ourselves, where are we with disease forecasting and analytics? We're back probably in the 70s or 80s. We're not as good as we could be. We're not as good as we should be. But one of the reasons why I left the private sector to come back to the federal government, one of the reasons why I believe that we can be on this same trajectory for disease analytics and outbreak analytics is because we now have the vision, we now have the technologies, we now have the teams, we have the resources and the leadership to actually build these capabilities going forward. I am confident that we are at this transformative moment right now to actually make a huge difference in the capabilities that can be brought to bear for infectious diseases. And that's why I came back to the federal government. And that's why I'm very thrilled and proud to be associated with the Center for Forecasting Outbreak Analytics. And I'm thrilled to be here with you all today. If there are any questions you might have, this is how you can get in touch with us. You can get in touch, chat with us going forward. But it is an absolute honor and a privilege to be with you today, and I will stop right there and go from there. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Well, that was fantastic. I am looking forward to many productive collaborations in the future with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, as I'm sure we all are. This next segment is all about engagement, and so it's appropriate that Dr. George has recently left us, because we're going to be joined by other colleagues from our BARDA family to talk about how the private sector can engage with BARDA. And with that, I would welcome up to the stage our DCMA colleagues from the Division of Division of Contract Management and Acquisition, and Dr. John Tigueras from the TechWatch program. Come on up, guys. So the background in this particular session is Dr. Gary Disbrow, who, as you know, is the director of BARDA, came to us very early on in the planning of BID 2022 and said, hey, you need to make sure that people know how they can engage with us. BARDA Industry Day is all about engagement. It's about collaboration. It's about learning to work with our subject matter experts and our scientists here at BARDA. And we need to make sure that we put front and center how our private sector partners, potential innovator companies, can work with us. And so the purpose of this panel is to have a little bit of discussion about just that very topic. And so it's my great pleasure to introduce our four panelists here today. Dr. John Tigueras, Ms. Rosemary Hill, Enrique Mannion, and Joffrey Benford. As many of you all know, COVID-19 was the largest response in BARDA's history. What we're especially pleased about is that we've adopted many new practices that help streamline the way in which BARDA does business with our colleagues. And the four panelists who are here before us today can talk about different stages in that, from the time in which an innovator company first reaches out to us and we meet with them through a TechWatch program, to our first levels of engagement through our BAA and our Easy BAA, to our contract closeout. And the purpose of this discussion is to kind of talk through the ins and outs of that a little bit. BARDA has proven that we can move quickly when there are immediate opportunities to make a difference in public health preparedness and response, and these four colleagues are essential to making that work. And so, I have a bunch of questions that I've written up to help them introduce themselves and their programs, but I was first going to ask them to just say hello and provide about 10 seconds about who they are, and also I'm going to throw them a curveball, say one thing that you love about working at BARDA. And I'm going to start here on the end with John Tigueras. John Tigueras, who are you, and one thing do you love about working at BARDA?
I wasn't ready for that question. Well, I'm TechWatch Johnny. I'm not leaders like the four of them here, but I get a cool nickname. So privileged to be up here with our CMA colleagues that really helped shape our program, and all of you in BARDA.
John, I think we need to pause because I don't think we have audio. So we're going to stand by for just a moment. All right, let's try it again. Try it again, John Tigueras.
TechWatch Johnny.
Hey, there he is. TechWatch Johnny, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, so thank you. Great to be here with my CMA leadership colleagues. I'm going to pretend like I'm a leader for the first time in a long time, but I do have a cool nickname. But in any event, I've been with BARDA for over 16 years now. I love it. I hope I'm here for another 10, but industry engagement is really important to BARDA, and I'll just stop there and turn it over.
Testing.
Hey.
Okay, yes. So I'm not TechWatch Johnny. I'm Rosemary Hill, and I want to bid everyone a Happy BARDA Day. And welcome to everyone that's joining virtually and in person. As of 7 November, I rejoined the BARDA team, so I'd be remiss if I did not say to Dr. Disbrow, sir, thank you for such a great welcome home party. And I am glad to be back with the CMA team.
Oh, there we go. My name is Enrique Mañana. I'm the Associate Director in the Division of Contract Management and Acquisitions. And I have been with BARDA now for about 8 years. Took a little break and left and came back in August. And I think the thing that I love the most about BARDA is the people and what we do here.
Well, good afternoon. Name's Joffrey Benford, the Director of Contracts here in BARDA CMA. Enrique actually stole my answer. I was going to say the people. We work with a very world-class group of individuals to support the mission. I've been at BARDA about 8 years. I, like Enrique, also took a break and happy to be home and happy to be back in the acquisition environment here in BARDA.
Well, Joffrey, we're glad to have you back. Rosemary, it's delightful to see you again after your pause away from us. And why don't we go ahead and get started with our very first question. Our first question is the big question. I'm going to throw it to the big dog on the end. Joffrey.
Let's do it.
How do companies do business with BARDA? What does that mean? How do they do business with BARDA?
Well, first we'll start with BARDA CMA is a robust acquisition office that really leverages a variety of procurement vehicles when it comes to engaging with the industry. The two major entry points for engaging with BARDA is by way of the Tech Watch program and the Broad Agency Announcement. The Broad Agency Announcement is a vehicle to where industry components like you are able to submit in a white paper format solutions to various areas of interest. The Tech Watch program is also a way, as you've heard through a variety of different presentations, an opportunity for industry in a more collaborative format to be able to position their technology to the government stakeholders, both internal and external.
Outstanding. So we've heard about this Tech Watch thing, but I want to drill into it a little bit more because it's super important. And there's also a couple little forks in the road for companies as they engage with us. Do I do a Tech Watch or do I submit a proposal? And I'm hoping that John Tigueras will help us start to understand how companies engage through the Tech Watch program. John, can you tell us a little bit about what Tech Watch is and why somebody would choose to come in through the Tech Watch program rather than just showing up to our headquarters with their hat in hand or going through the BAA?
Yeah, thank you, John. So I'll kind of take it in three chunks. So first of all, thanks to all the industry partners out there. We don't get to, if the number is 65 countermeasures without partnering with industry. So hugely important. Our Tech Watch program is that meeting ground for industry engagement. Straight out of the gates with the inception of BARDA in 2008, Tech Watch rolled out. It had kind of a FEMC, kind of all-in-one enterprise where not just BARDA, but also the USG participates. But there really are two major clients to the program. One is the companies, industry, and the other is really BARDA. And so what makes it special, I think, about Tech Watch is we really approach your Tech Watch meeting with both on an equal plane. For us, we want to better understand the utility of your technologies, how they can help us address our mission needs. For you to really better understand what's great about your technology, what are some things to consider, and also where there may be potential partner opportunities. So in your Tech Watch meeting, you have a very open and informal dialogue, and we hope that technical guidance really helps to provide enough value that it gives you information about strategic direction and what to do next. For our meetings, we normally have about 50 to 60 now. I think that's a product of the success of the program over the past decade, especially during the pandemic, and also the virtual world. So, in the spirit of accelerating success, we want to provide you the best technical input so you know what to do next or informed as strategically, if you want to partner with BARDA, what really is needed. The second thing is really kind of managing expectations. So in terms of the first thing you really got to consider is if you're entertaining a submission to BARDA, a white paper to the BAA, it's a really pivotal time to consider putting in a meeting request because the discussion you can have with BARDA and the USG team can really inform how to better position your white paper, or conversely, to really share some information that maybe there's some data gaps, there's a regulatory discussion, there's some things that you need to, I think, strengthen your position before you take the time to write a white paper and submit it and have time for the review. One important thing, early development, even though we're an advanced development organization, early development is in play for us. So as long as you've read our BA and see that you're addressing a gap or a need that's an open area of interest, that you're moving in our direction, again, that's what our hope is, and the brain trust we bring to these discussions to provide really good technical guidance, so accelerate you on a faster track to come back to us when you're responsive to the BAA. The reality too is to really sustain the program. Although, I'll give you an example. We had over 5,000 meeting requests for the pandemic. We held over 800 Corona Watch meetings exclusive to COVID during the pandemic. The Delta 4200s, not that those technologies weren't important, they just weren't relevant to the collective mission space of BARDA and our USG colleagues. And we kind of try to protect that because we want to make best use of time for you all as companies when you come in, and also for the government to understand the technology. So that's the way we ensure we get good turnouts. The third thing is really kind of some of the details of the program. It's important when you decide you're going to put in a meeting request, you really give us a really good look at your technology description. We have implemented kind of a new process called TechWatch Triage, where we were, prior to the pandemic, we were a very small group, but we basically wrapped in all sorts of colleagues across BARDA to help vet meeting requests. So what you put in is what helps us determine whether we're going to have a meeting. And if you have, for example, a technology for RADNUC, that will be sent over to some RADNUC members to really vet those requests and decide on whether to have a TechWatch meeting. Important you look at the BAA, really closely study that to know the areas of interest, and also your technology readiness level. Important to know where your product development sits with respect to how advanced it is and responsive to those open areas of interest. FDA interaction is really critical, helps to de-risk our decisions we make. We're programmed, and TechWatch hopefully helps inform that and presents technology options for them to consider. And the last point is we're very data-driven as an organization, so when you do put forth a presentation, we're very keen on seeing as a very highly technical group the data you've generated to support your proof of concept, et cetera.
Thank you, Dr. Tigueras. And not to put your feet to the fire, and I wouldn't want to get our burn blast people on alert either, but the question that we get a lot is like, when do people get funded after they do the TechWatch? So I go and I do a TechWatch and it goes great, and I get all sorts of advice from our subject matter experts at BARDA. When does the first check come in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, and thanks to the CMA colleagues that keep us in the rails about what we do. So we are really separated from program, and that allows us to have very open technical discussions with you about your technology. So we kind of have blinders on as to what's going on in the solicitation process. What's important as companies is it's incumbent on you to decide when to make a submission to BARDA for funding consideration. We hope the interaction we have through the TechWatch program in your meeting helps to better inform that and inform the timing and positioning, but we really don't get involved in the funding aspect. That's really for program to handle on the solicitation side. That kind of protects us to have very open discussions without worrying about any cone of silence issues we may accidentally trip over.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, John. Thank you for that. Joffrey, can you say a little bit about the cone of silence? What is this cone of silence we hear about, and what does it mean for acquisition?
Yeah, so when we talk code of silence, maybe that's probably not the best way you want to say code of silence, but it's really ensuring that the procurement process is protected. As TechWatch Johnny mentioned, when we think about TechWatch, we want to really think about that as an environment to where technology is really discussed in a much more collaborative format, to where we're not so much talking about the dollars and cents, which really comes into play when you think more about the acquisition process. So we don't want to use code of silence, we want to say procurement integrity, which is what TechWatch Johnny and his team is very focused on ensuring that we protect procurement integrity.
Thank you very much. Rosemary. Rosemary returned to us recently from the Department of Defense and has had 30 years of experience in the military and in military acquisitions. She's recently rejoined us here at BARDA, and we're very, very glad to have her back. Rosemary, though, with your extensive experience in the Department of Defense working through their acquisitions programs, can you tell us about what is different about BARDA? Like, what's special about BARDA, and what are the ways in which BARDA interacts through our acquisitions that differentiates us from other contract shops in the federal government?
Sure. So good morning again. Again, I'm Rosemary Hill. So my 30 years of service include my service in the military, my work as a federal contractor, and now as a federal civilian. And although I'd like to share some of the difference, I also want to observe and make a quick mention of the shift that I see happening. The biggest, difference is obviously the commodities and services to support the various missions that I've been a part of. I've been a part of the textile community to service all of the uniforms that our service members wear. I have been a part of the buying activities when it comes to service and supplies to support the intelligence community, and most recently being a part of a buying activity for PO Missiles and Space out in Redstone, Alabama. So other differences includes the contract software writing systems that we use. I've been a part of those that use the PD2 system, PADS, and now here for PRISM. And of course, the internal policies and processes and procedures at the activity level that you may see a little bit more truncated with their review processes. So here at BARDA, I see that the review processes can be more streamlined. Overall, the FAR being the starting point for most of the acquisitions in the federal government, depending on the organizations and the supplemental regulations that are then included. For example, the FAR is a starting basis for all of our acquisition personnel. Then here at BARDA, we have the HISAR, and DoD, they have the FAR, then the DFARS, and then the Army even have the AFARS. So although we have differences, I see that we're buying smarter here in BARDA as well as across the federal acquisition community because we're buying as a federal government. I see partnerships that Dr. Disbrow talked about earlier today with JPEO and ACC. So across the acquisition community, we're creating those partnerships, much like we're here doing today with you, our industry partners. I see that together we're buying, together we're fighting, and together we're winning. And I thank our industry partners for providing the solutions here to BARDA that will aid in responding to emerging threats. Again, I really am grateful to be a part of the session today. And want to say thank you to the CMA team that is out there buying for our industry or from our industry. Together, we're here to have to create a shared interest to gain a common understanding of how to promote the advanced development of medical countermeasures to protect Americans and respond to 21st century health security threats.
Thank you, Rosemary. So I'm not going to let Enrique off the hook. I got to get a question in for Enrique, and I got a big one for you. Enrique, what are the rules that apply to companies when they make a submission through the BAA? And also, I hear this thing about an easy BAA, which I understand is easier. Can you tell us about the difference between the easy BAA and the BAA and why you'd go in one and not the other?
Sure, that's a great question on the rules that apply to companies that are submitting to the BAA. There's a couple of things that companies need to keep in mind. One of them is that they are registered in SAM.gov, which is the system for award management. And through that system, you can obtain the UEID, which is the Unique Entity Identifier number, which is formerly known as DUNS, the DUNS number. That's very important because without that, awards can be delayed. Potentially, it could prevent the government from making awards. Companies also need to have established rates if they're submitting proposals for cost reimbursement contracts. If they haven't done business with the government in the past, or they're fairly new to doing business with the government, they may not have those rates established, so at least having the supporting documentation and all of the backup for proper evaluation and audit during that piece of the process, that's also required. In terms of the differences between the two BAAs, they're obviously two very similar vehicles. One of the differences is obviously the areas of interest between the two, but also with the Easy BAA, the awards are capped at right under $750,000. If it's a project that's awarded a second phase, those can go up to $20 million. The Easy BAA also requires a resource match or cost share, which is typically 30 to 50%. The Easy BAA also focuses on firm fixed price contracts, and the BARDA BAA is open to more, most of the contract vehicles that are available to us. And the Easy BAA also has a streamlined process for review and evaluation, which is indicative of the smaller scale of the projects that are awarded through that vehicle. We're moving the BARDA BAA into that model at the beginning of the calendar year, but we're not there yet. But anyway, that's some of the differences.
Excellent, thank you very much. And is it fair to say that the Easy BAA is the exclusive or the primary province of our Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures?
That also. So the Easy BAA lives under the Drive division. And the BARDA BAA basically services the remaining of the program divisions.
Thank you very much, Enrique. Joffrey, one thing we hear from our partner companies is that things are going great, they're going swimmingly, they've become accustomed to the ways in which their contract officers work with our contract officers, and then there can be a change of staffing or a change of administration, and it seems like the rules change, or if not the rules change, at least the styles change. Can you tell us a little bit more about what companies can expect when the inevitable turnover occurs, or when we need to rebalance workload away from one contract officer to another contract officer? What are some things that are the same, and what are some things that might change?
Well, the FAR stays the same. The acquisition process stays the same. Now, as far as staffing changes, that happens organizationally, no matter if it's government or private sector. But what we do is we try our best to, number one, provide customer service to our internal stakeholders, and then also provide responsiveness to our external stakeholders. Now, as we begin to look at styles, I think John mentioned the word style. Yeah, every contracting officer has a different style for how they believe the execution is to go. But the policy and the rules stay the same. And so what I would offer to our industry partners here today, both online and in person, is that we're consistent in our acquisition processes. We're consistent in our acquisition methods. We leverage our acquisition authorities appropriately, and we're open for business. So if there are additional questions about process or about acquisitions that are either going through the process, we have a divisional briefing today at 2:30. I'll be there and happy to meet with all who want to meet.
Excellent. I might attend just to meet you again. That'll be great. Okay. So this is going to be a question that I'm going to ask the whole panel. And not everybody has to respond, but I would love to hear the ways in which this organization, so the pandemic changed everything in a lot of ways. It changed everything, and in some cases changed nothing. But one thing that it changed a lot is how this organization does its business. We've talked a little bit about that, but I'm wondering if perhaps, John, you could provide some reflections on how the pandemic changed the TechWatch program and your approach to the TechWatch program. And fair warning, DCMA colleagues, it's coming your way next.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would, first of all, I just want to say one thing. When you come in for a TechWatch meeting, we are bound by federal law to maintain confidentiality. So we want you to approach a discussion, and we only invite USG colleagues, so want you to have free reign to feel comfortable, have a very open discussion so we can best inform the discussion. And it's not always about funding. It's, we have so much brain trust. Hopefully the guidance we give in and of itself is value added for the hour we get with you. The pandemic was really interesting. I think the changes we made to the portal, the process, meeting process, request process, and the culture, I think one thing we're very proud of as an organization is day one of the pandemic, because we've done so much to make those improvements over time, we really found out, we launched the portal the first day of the pandemic. So we turned TechWatch from a BARDA-led program, BARDA TechWatch, to a USG all-of-government Corona Watch exclusive to COVID. That portal opened the first day of the pandemic, and I think the TechWatch triage, where we have all of our colleagues in BARDA kind of vet meeting requests, we added another 50 from those 100 across the USG to help with that process. What we kind of found out is that we're really part of the response framework. TechWatch done right, thanks to the USG team, but also the companies that bring forth their technologies, really helps the government in a pandemic or a public health emergency see the options available that can be of utility during the response. Again, we had 5,000 meeting requests. We held 800 meetings, and that vetting really was to make sure they were in our mission, but also of utility, potential utility during the pandemic. So I think that's really what we learned during the pandemic, that we were part of the response framework, and we were ready for it because of all we built up over the years.
Thanks, John. Joffrey, I see you're looking perky.
I'll take this one. So through the pandemic, the 70-plus acquisition professionals within DCMA stayed relentless. If you look historically at our numbers, and I think Gary in his slide a little earlier mentioned about the 890-plus actions that we executed last year, that totaled $4.4 billion. Previously, we executed a little over $3 billion in the previous fiscal year. So when we look at change, there hasn't been much, right? We've been consistent with our processes, we've been able to execute appropriately, and the staff has been relentless. And I think Ms. Hill here mentioned earlier about really thanking our staff. We have a group of individuals that come to work every day, they perform at a very high level, and they ensure that we execute in the right way. And to be able to have the numbers that we have as far as the total of actions and dollars expended, it shows that throughout the pandemic, we stay focused.
Thank you. John, you hit on something a little bit earlier that I wanted to drill down on, and I'm gonna turn to Enrique for the CMA side of this as well. When people submit an application for a TechWatch meeting, what are the most important things that they need to do to make sure that they understand and can communicate to have that be a successful meeting, both in terms of whether they accept the meeting, whether we accept the meeting as a TechWatch meeting, and in terms of getting the feedback that they want. And then in a moment, for our DCMA colleagues, I'll ask the same thing. What are the components of a successful submission to the BAA or a successful submission to the Easy BAA? But please, TechWatch first.
Yeah, I think for companies, it's important you really do your due diligence. You know, kind of the same message. Study our BARDA strategic plan. Study our BAA. Study our Easy BAA. Study the TRO. Really understand we're very data-driven. We want to see your data. We want to discuss your data because we're a very technical group. I think one of the things in supporting programs and supporting industry, because I think we all sit on the same side of the table trying to really ultimately save lives, is your presentation is really important. One of the things we're going to implement very soon that we've done a lot of during the pandemic is help companies and work with companies on their slide presentation itself, because you really have one opportunity to have a big splash at your TechWatch meeting. Often slide presentations can be a bit off the mark, so we're going to implement kind of reviewing with the company their slide presentation a week or two prior, so it's the most impactful presentation to make for BARDA and the government team, but also for you as a company to get the best input you can from that meeting.
Thanks, John. Enrique?
I think without going into the weeds of the BAA, but kind of what John said, I think reading the BAA very carefully, making sure that the submission for the white paper includes every single item that needs to be in the submission, including that quad chart, which is very important to program. But I just think keeping with the requirements of the solicitation is it sounds simplistic, but it's probably the best answer I can give you.
I'd like to add on to that too, regarding that, and that's understanding the process, and that comes with closing the gaps of communication. So understanding the process itself from beginning to end, so there's a shared visualization and understanding of what should happen first, second, and third. So I think that constant communication and that consistency that's also built inside of that will help now and in the future.
Well, so Rosemary, can I press on that just a little bit? This is not the sort of thing that they teach in graduate schools, working with federal contracting. It's not the sort of thing that you learn about by reading on the internet. How do people develop the capacities to be a successful company working with the government and to be able to bring the information that you need and have that effective communication at the right time and in the right manner?
I think there's various platforms in which that can be accomplished. This is one right here, BARDA Industry Day. I mean, Industry Days, point of entries, whether you see on FedBizOps or SAM.gov now, there's various ways that the federal government do reach out to industry to help to kind of ease the process so that they can understand how to best provide those responses and solutions to meet the requirements. So.
Thank you. Joffrey, are there resources that you would point to for smaller businesses who are interested in doing business with the federal government?
Absolutely. The larger department has the OSDBU office. The OSDBU office, but it really specializes in engaging small businesses with the federal acquisition process. In addition to that, medicalcountermeasures.gov is now live when it comes to having a CMA component. So you'll see there a little bit about what we do. You'll see some of the faces and some of the names for individuals that you can reach out to and connect with within the CMA organization to really help small businesses be able to get over the hurdle.
All right. And with that, we're rapidly drawing to a close on our Engaging with BARDA session. There are a few slides that I'm going to show generally for the viewing audience so that you can gain more access to how to engage with BARDA. The first is our broad agency announcement. That happy little design in the lower right-hand corner is a QR code that if you scan it with your phone or with another device will take you directly to our BAA application page, at which point you can submit a BAA application with all of the caveats that our Engaging with BARDA panelists have provided. Be very careful and strategic about when, how, and where you apply for the BAA, and you could consider using one of our other resources, such as the Easy BAA if you think that that is a better alignment with your organization's, your company's goals, and you like working with the Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures. Or alternatively, if you're seeking principally feedback not linked to funding, as Dr. Tijeras pointed out, you could go through our TechWatch program to receive that open communication and engagement with our subject matter experts. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close our Engaging with BARDA panel. I would ask you that you thank our panelists with a warm round of applause. And I think we exit stage left, and I will hand the microphone over to Dr. Lambert.
Thank you so very much, Rosemary, Joffrey, Enrique, John, and John, for that quite engaging and lively discussion. Really appreciated it. Alrighty, our next speaker is Chairman and CEO of the Global Health Investment Corporation, or GHIC. Labib Aboud has served in various leadership roles in global health product development and innovative financing, including the establishment of the Global Health Investment Corporation, where he has served as chairman since 2014. He joined GHIC as CEO in 2021 to launch its Global Health Security Partnership with BARDA and advance the organization's mission through its investment activities and public-private partnerships. Please join me. We welcome you, Mr. Aboud. We're grateful you're here.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here today, and exciting to see the energy in this room and to connect with everyone joining online. I'd like to first thank Gary, Sandeep Patel, and the BARDA Ventures team, and BARDA and ASPR leadership for the opportunity to speak today on the importance of innovation and novel public-private partnerships to strengthen global health security and address pandemic threats. A few reflections on what we've learned throughout the past several years. First, as we're all aware, COVID-19 is not over. The threat of infection causing significant morbidity and mortality, and of evolution to future vaccine-resistant variants remains present. Second, we understand that the risks of viral threats and disease outbreaks, and there have already been 7 since the turn of the century, are heightened by the increase in population density, human mobility, industrial agriculture, as well as environmental and climate change, and that U.S. health security is inextricably linked to and dependent on global health security in an increasingly interconnected world. Finally, although we do not know what the next public health emergency will be, we do know that the trajectory of future outbreaks, the number of lives lost, and the impact on livelihoods and economies will be determined by the things that are in place prior to a pandemic, rather than those put in place once a pandemic has begun. And the investment to prepare for a pandemic pales in comparison to the cost of an inadequate response plan. According to the WHO, there have been in excess of 625 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 and over 6.5 million deaths. The direct economic costs have been in the multiple trillions of dollars, and the indirect and ongoing costs from the acute health risks in at-risk and immune-compromised populations to delays in educational and social attainment will take years to fully understand. We must take these learnings and redouble our efforts to prepare for the threats we know about and the threats we may not yet know about through sustained investment and coordination across the public, private, and nonprofit sectors, nationally and internationally. During this pandemic, we've also witnessed the remarkable power of scientific innovation across the global scientific community, public and private sectors, prioritizing the COVID-19 response, leading to the development and delivery of effective and safe medical countermeasures in record time. Enabling much of this remarkable progress was the role of government, working closely with academia and industry to catalyze innovation, investing in basic and applied science, and de-risking early development, followed by, at the onset of the pandemic, accelerating product development through public-private partnerships with the biotechnology and life science industries, and supporting the market for products once available. Operation Warp Speed was a dramatic example, catalyzing resources made available by the US government through a focused and accelerated effort with private industry, as well as other novel global partnership models across the ecosystem, the ACT Accelerator and COVAX, launched by Gavi, CEPI, and the WHO. As a result, there was a paradigm shift. The design, development, and delivery of effective vaccines and monoclonal antibody therapies within 1 year, the ability of individuals to diagnose their infection status at home, and the accelerated translation of new innovations in biotechnology to both health security and the overall resilience of our public health system in the face of an ongoing threat. Yet, as we've all seen, there were and there remain important gaps in our preparedness and response capabilities, such as for vaccines, durability of protection, transmission blocking, and importantly, supply and delivery challenges to achieving equitable global access. Therapeutics that are widely accessible globally. Biomanufacturing infrastructure that is agile and can scale on demand. Supply chain constraints. And healthcare delivery that can scale in the face of a pandemic. As this audience is well aware, private investment capital has been instrumental in financing advances in biotechnology due to its tolerance for risk, speed, long time horizon, support for paradigm-shifting technologies, and active role in the success of portfolio companies through its engagement in strategy, partnerships, financings, and governance. Many of the sources of pandemic innovation were in fact developed by companies initially supported by venture capital investment. Yet, there have been challenges in mobilizing private sector financing of health security products and outcomes during past decades. In addition to the scientific and product development challenges, there has been the issue of commercial sustainability and of market demand, which has limited industry engagement and presented barriers to bringing global health security-focused products to the market and sustaining those products once on the market. Addressing these financing challenges and stimulating greater private sector investment in the field of health security has been one of BARDA's top priorities. BARDA has, since its inception, been an innovator in its approach to accelerating product development in partnership with the private sector, developing mechanisms for engaging with industry with funding from early to late stage clinical development, procurement, and infrastructure. BARDA has had a history of successful collaborations resulting in 65 FDA approvals, licensures, and clearances for medical countermeasures, and has also launched several successful public-private partnerships which build upon the contributions of its partners, CARB-X and JLab's Blue Knight among them. More recently, thanks to the foresight, the support, and the authorization of Congress through the 21st Century Cures Act, BARDA launched a novel public-private partnership between BARDA Ventures and the Global Health Investment Corporation to bring forward a strategic, mission-focused venture capital investment mechanism to the field of global health security, adding another tool to deploy BARDA-provided US government funding through venture investments supporting health security, innovation, and impact, increasing the speed, the range, and flexibility of engagement with innovative technologies. GHIC is an independent, nonprofit corporation whose mission is to invest in a healthier and safer world. Established a decade ago, born from the vision of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, to mobilize private, public, and philanthropic capital to increase investment in global health product development, using traditional investment tools, including venture investment, to support innovative companies driving health impact. Through the GHIC BARDA partnership, GHIC invests BARDA-provided funding alongside other third-party investment capital into venture investments that have a strategic mission overlay. The key goal is to accelerate innovative technologies relevant to medical countermeasure, product development, and health security, including pandemic preparedness and response, so that they can be available to all people in need. There are three key features of the partnership I'd like to highlight. First, mission-focused investment. GHIC invests across the full spectrum of technologies and medical countermeasures within BARDA's mission framework to help mitigate future health security challenges, both enabling technologies as well as medical countermeasure products. Co-investment. To mobilize and leverage investment from third-party capital across the private, public, and philanthropic sectors to amplify impact. Sustainability. An evergreen mechanism has been established for GHIC to reinvest future proceeds from BARDA-provided funding into additional investments to generate further mission impact. How we work together. BARDA provides the strategic mission framework, access to its network of partners, and its considerable scientific, technical, clinical, and regulatory expertise, as well as funding and potential additional mechanisms that may be available to engage with portfolio companies in the future. GHIC, in turn, identifies, evaluates, and executes venture capital investments to accelerate innovative medical countermeasures and related technologies, accessing companies and technologies globally, mobilizing or co-investing alongside third-party capital, engaging and supporting portfolio companies on a go-forward basis through development into commercial sustainability, and finally, reinvesting proceeds from BARDA-provided funding to drive additional impact. To date, GHIC has invested in companies across the mission framework priority areas that include pandemic surveillance, remote patient monitoring, diagnostics and therapeutics, vaccine development, formulation and administration, and biomanufacturing, leveraging additional private sector investment. For every dollar invested by GHIC in portfolio companies to date, other leading venture investors have provided approximately $9 in additional co-investment to these companies. Looking forward, there are opportunities for investment, innovation, and impact that could be transformative for health security and pandemic preparedness. These include to meet the ambitious 100-day mission goal for vaccines, pathogen agnostic and pathogen specific diagnostics, including those closer to the patient, host-directed therapeutics, advanced drug discovery platforms, biomanufacturing from modular facilities to integrated on-demand continuous manufacturing to globally distributed capacity, and last-mile technologies to deliver medical countermeasure products to all those in need. In parallel with expanding mission-focused private investment, there's an opportunity to collaborate with and leverage strategically aligned public sector and multilateral initiatives to address global health security challenges, and which can crowd in additional private investment, such as public sector push initiatives to accelerate technology and product development through leading health security funders in the US, such as JPEO, DITRA, DARPA, and BARDA, and the NIH, as well as newly emerging funders such as ARPA-H, and in the EU, HERA, as well as public sector pull incentives for health security technologies, which can send clear signals to the private sector for priorities in health security and technology development, particularly where the commercial use case is unclear, such as for target product profiles, stockpile purchases, advanced market commitments, market entry awards and prizes, and long-term procurement contracts, all of which can help catalyze additional investment. In summary, I'd like to close with the following thoughts. One, that mission-focused venture investment is an effective tool to advance strategic goals, to strengthen global health security and pandemic preparedness and response. Second, that this effort is so vital to our collective future that we must work together, and that innovative partnerships bridging and bringing forward the contributions of the private, public, and philanthropic sectors amplify the potential to catalyze health impact. And finally, that we need to maintain a long-term view as well as a sense of urgency, applying the lessons of today in the years ahead, and sustain these efforts to lead to stronger preparedness and response capabilities to meet the health security challenges of tomorrow. I'd like to thank our partners at BARDA for their commitment to innovation, to public-private partnerships, and for their ongoing efforts to improve global health security. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Aboud. And if you want to learn more about the other organizations that BARDA works with that have similarly aligned mission spaces, at 2 p.m. tomorrow there's a reverse funding pitch breakout session, so feel free to join that. Again, my name is John Rigg. I'm the Director of Management Operations here at BARDA, and it gives me a great pleasure to introduce the second of our 2 division director panels. And for this panel, we will be joined by Dr. Sandeep Patel, who's the Director of the Division of Research, Innovation, and Ventures, Dr. Richard Gorman, who's our Division of Clinical, our DCD, Division of Clinical, our Clinical Division. April Bryce with our Division of Non-Clinicals, and Dr. Ruben Donis, who is our Director of Influenza and Emerging Infectious Disease. And with that, I believe I hand it off to Sandeep. Dr. Patel.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. All right. So I'm Sandeep Patel. I'm the Director of Division of Research, Innovation, Ventures, or DRIVE. So my job as the DRIVE Director, and that of the entire DRIVE team, and I'm really excited to see many folks in the room today from the team, is to ensure that the next big thing is ready for prime time before the next health emergency hits. And we do this through investments in emerging technologies, in new response capabilities, and most importantly, in the people who are gonna drive those things in the future. And we take risks because, just to be clear, I think the next big thing is probably still a crazy idea today. But in order for us to be successful, we have to overcome 4 really big challenges. So the first is preparing for the unknown. I don't know anything about the next emergency. I don't know if it's gonna be like COVID-19. I don't know if it's gonna be like an Ebola outbreak, an emerging fungal pathogen, a chemical attack, a Godzilla attack, or any number of other possibilities. And figuring out how to prepare for those multiple scenarios is challenging. Second is proof and scale. So there's a lot of really exciting science out there. There's a lot of really emerging technology in multiple domains. How do we effectively sift through that to find the things that are going to scale? Third is commercial viability. You heard a little bit about this in Labib's talk. It's hard to be an entrepreneur. It's hard to be an entrepreneur in life sciences, and it's even harder to be an entrepreneur in a startup in health security, for pandemic preparedness, for things like chem, rad, nuke, medical countermeasures. So how do we fundamentally change this assumption? And the fourth is market viability. And so this one I think is really important and underappreciated, which is just because we make a product available, it doesn't mean it's going to be used or have the desired impact. So how do we change the way we design products? How do we demonstrate utility in a way that I think is more human, and improves the usability aspect of it, which is key in the response scenarios we've seen. So overcoming these challenges is really the core of what we do at DRIVE, past, present, future, as you'll hear later today. There we go. So you're gonna hear a bunch about all the details of sort of how we overcome these challenges later today in our session at 1:30, so please be sure to join, as well as a lot of the breakouts tomorrow. But just to give you a quick rundown, we have 52 active partnerships with companies across our 13 R&D programs. We're supporting 26 startups as life science incubator residents in our J-Labs Blue Knight partnership across the world. We're supporting dozens more companies through our BARDA Accelerator Network. We have 8 companies in our portfolio now with Global Health Investment Corporation in our BARDA Ventures partnership. And we have a ton of other ways to support companies. And you heard a little bit about the Mass Challenge and the winners there and the Quickfire Challenge. And so we're finding ways to build this ecosystem. Again, teaser, you're gonna hear a lot more at 1:30 and in breakouts tomorrow. Thank you. I'm gonna turn it over to, who's next? Dr. Richard Gorman.
My name is Rich Gorman. I am the acting director of the Division of Clinical Development. Thank you. Thank you. That clinical stuff, as we used to say. As many of you know, putting your products and people as close to the final common pathway for many of the products that you develop, our partners develop, to become effective medical countermeasures available for use for the protection of the United States citizens and the citizens of the world. DCD is a support division for BARDA and for our partners. And we have assembled a group of both experienced and with great expertise in 3 functional divisions of clinical operations, biostatistics, and medical product development and safety. These groups are comprised of grizzled veterans and enthusiastic rookies who come together to create a catalyst of people who will either advise, guide, or provide in your medical countermeasure development. And I think everyone in our programmatic branches and most of the companies that work with us are well aware of our abilities to advise and to guide. I want to spend a few seconds talking about our ability to provide. Okay. So we have established a network of experienced clinical trial infrastructure that we have contracts with CROs, we have contracts with biostats support, and contracts with a organization that provides storage for samples that are collected. And the integration of those 3 services has been basically complete. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you go out to do a clinical study. All the communication pathways are developed. The SOPs and how they interact with one another are well developed. And they will allow you, if you need someone to provide services to you, to be able to provide a service that comes as a soups to nuts continuum from the beginning of the product going in. And we can do this for phase 1, phase 2, and hopefully not too often phase 3, because the last year has been a little bit brutal with phase 3 development. The Division of Clinical Development is divided into the 3 operational groups: clinical operations, medical, safety, and biostats, and their capabilities are listed below. And then we have the clinical studies networks that puts all those opportunities together so that you can execute. I want to end on a personal note. For the last 2 years, I've been introduced here as the acting director of the Division of Clinical Development. And it is my hope that next year somebody gets introduced as the director of the Division of Clinical Development. USA Jobs has an announcement that's going out today, and it is my firm wish that you will support me in fulfilling my wish that next year there'll be a director. Thank you for your attention.
Good morning. I'm the director of the Non-Clinical Development Division. My name is April Bryce. The Division of Non-Clinical Development is a centralized non-clinical resource within BARDA, supporting BARDA's medical countermeasure development enterprise. As a core service, we assist in the development and production of required products in a manner that is timely, reliable, and cost-effective. We ensure that BARDA has access to high containment laboratories with the required regulatory quality systems, the tools, and the non-clinical expertise needed to advance medical countermeasure development for chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear threats, and influenza and emerging infectious disease priority areas, and to improve our responsiveness and preparedness to pandemics and emerging threats. Organizationally, Organizationally, our division administers the core service under 3 distinct branches, including non-clinical programs providing senior scientific subject matter experts in countermeasure medical non-clinical development, project management covering establishment and maintenance of the non-clinical network contracts, and data operations providing data analytic services and ensuring data emanating from these networks are fit for purpose. Taken together, these branches integrate to build teams around BARDA's non-clinical programs to address the challenges associated with medical countermeasure non-clinical development. As a centralized resource within BARDA, we enable integration across BARDA's medical countermeasure programs, which is essential for the success of product development. Visibility and integration across programs enable previous data and studies to guide future and current research and allows limited resources, including laboratory capacity, reagents, and animals, to be coordinated and prioritized. We provide regulatory compliant non-clinical services through partnership with our network laboratories. These services include proactive development of product agnostic non-clinical models, development and validation of the required assays and reagents, and the evaluation and adoption of new non-clinical technology and tools. The key to our success as BARDA prepares and responds to 21st century threats is the strong partnerships with our laboratory networks, product developers, and interagency partners. We work closely with the laboratory networks, other government agencies, and with our product development partners to ensure the data, reagents, models, and information are shared and best practices are developed. As we look to the future, we continue to innovate and expand our services to meet the changing and challenging requirements of BARDA and our industry partners to be ready for future threats and pandemics. And now is my commercial. This afternoon, you'll learn more about how we, as a division, work with our programs. And tomorrow, there are 2 breakout sessions, one on coral slip protection and non-clinical models for the SARS-CoV-2 vaccines, and another on lessons learned from the filovirus programs. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ruben Adonis.
Okay, well, good morning, and it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and thank you for joining us. I'm Ruben Adonis, the acting director of the Influenza Division. I hope next BID you will find a permanent director. So I will tell you a little bit about our mission. Before that, I just wanted to remind ourselves that although COVID is receding, flu viruses and other emerging pathogens continue to evolve in birds, swine, wild populations of many kinds, and they could become a pandemic any day. So that's where our mission comes in, which is to develop the medical countermeasures to respond, mitigate, and counter control the next pandemic, whether it's flu or other emerging pathogen. That strategy is implemented by 3, ranging from seasonal to rising star, brilliant branch chiefs, Dr. Jonathan Seals, Dr. Christina Shansky, Dr. Kimberly Armstrong. So I'll start with the commercial. Please join us this afternoon for their breakouts. They will be presenting their portfolios, their programs, to accomplish our mission. There are also breakouts beyond the needle, one dealing with alternative delivery, also breakouts on the potential applications of pre-exposure prophylaxis as well as host-directed therapeutics. So please, those will be tomorrow. So please keep those in mind. Before I move to a little bit of a greater description, I would like to say that our investments in medical countermeasures for the COVID response have translated into 1.3 billion doses of vaccines becoming available to the American public, and more than 24 million doses, treatment courses, I should say, of therapeutics for COVID-19. So major accomplishments, and thanks to the contributions of many of you here and on the other side of the virtual wall. So before I close, I would like to point out that the 3 programs that we have on vaccines, pandemic preparedness, and therapeutics have a very diverse and comprehensive portfolio of products ranging from phase 1, phase 2, and all the way to development. And the implementation of all these programs stays true to our core principle, which is to have products that are licensed and a manufacturing capacity that is sustainable and that will be there ready to go when we need it. So the new normal, as spelled out in the American Pandemic Preparedness Plan for vaccines, is 100 days. So we have a lot of work to do to get there. So hopefully the permanent director will be responsible for that. So thank you all for your attention, and happy to interact with you through the virtual booths and everything else that comes in as part of this virtual environment. So thank you again.
So thank you very much, Sandeep, Rich, April, Ruben, and John. Okay. So we are about to wrap, just a few quick things. I want to acknowledge and thank everyone who gave a presentation today, and our panel members, and certainly the audience here that we have in the room here in Washington, D.C., as well as our virtual friends and coworkers and partners. So I hope that you get a sense from BARDA Industry Day about the energy and the excitement that there is to work with BARDA, to learn more about BARDA's mission, its opportunities, and this incredible, incredible team. Together, we can shape the impact of the future of medical countermeasure development and public health. And I hope what you've seen so far this morning is that it is evident that in BARDA, we love the work that we get to do because we get to work with you. So, alrighty, this is me telling you a little bit about this afternoon. Let's see, we've got the agenda up there. Thank you so much. So this afternoon, you'll hear about from our division directors about their program areas. So that is where we really get into the details. So please join us for those. The breakout sessions run in 2 blocks from 1:30 to 2:30 and 2:30 to 3:30. And then we will resume for a short closing session at 3:45. And again, we hope to see you at the Virtual Expo from 4 to 6 p.m. this afternoon. Again, it's a chance to meet many of our program staff and ask those detailed questions that you may have about working with BARDA. And don't forget the networking feature. Again, we want to provide you with more opportunities to interact directly with the staff as well as other attendees at this meeting. So please give that instant networking chance if you haven't done that yet. Put it on your to-do list to try something different. With that, we'll see you back at 1:30. If you go out of the building, please leave a little bit of extra time because you'll get to go through security again to get in here. So thank you so much. Enjoy your lunch break, and we'll see you back here promptly at 1:30.